Hey, good morning, family. I got this whistle in my hand. You know what time it is. This is Coach Carlos. Let's get this new tip in on Sunday that you can implement on Monday. Now, if you've been with me the last couple of weeks, you know what I've been talking about is the one thing. Now, I'm taking my time with this is because you've got to get the philosophy right first on anything so you can get the practice right secondly, and then you line that up with the right people who can implement the practice based on the philosophy. That's the way I coach it. That's the way I teach it. And whenever you just throw a program out there, but people don't understand the philosophy, don't buy into the philosophy, then the principles and the processes are just going to go crazy because ultimately everything depends on people. So I always start with philosophy before I roll a program out because I've got to get buy-in there. And then we start with the processes, and then we have the people. I know how to hire based on my philosophies. I know how to evaluate based on my philosophies. But everything starts with the philosophy, then the program, then the people. If you have people, you got to teach them the philosophies. So 23, if you guys were with me, and tip 23, real quick, what I did is I talked about the one thing. Very phenomenal business book that works for our industry. And he asked the question, the focus question, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing so will make everything else easier or unnecessary? And we adapted that for education. We asked ourselves, as teachers, what's the one thing I can do for my students such that by doing that for my students, I will make everything else easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing? See, I don't believe in big overhaul programs that takes a whole lot of budgeting, takes a whole lot of implementation. You guys are already drained. I like the Archimedes approach. Show me a lever in the fulcrum for which I can place it, and then I can move the world. Small changes that give you big results. So what Gary Keller asked his team to ask themselves every single day, what's the one thing that I can do such that by doing that? So that was 23. And then tip number 24, what I supported it with, if you guys remember, I talked about building momentum. The small things that we do are what build momentum to knock over the big things. And we talked about the proof in science where one little small domino starts the action, gives you momentum, and each domino can knock over another domino 50% its size. Now, how does that relate to us? It's those little small things that we do. It's not the small thing itself that does it. It's the small thing that you do that builds the momentum. And we know this too in relationships. By the time a relationship has gone bad, and heaven forbid you're in divorce court or you're breaking up, it's not because of something big that happened. Most of the times, it's because some little small thing that started a chain reaction. But that also happens in a good way. It's called the domino effect. One little small thing that you do. We talked about that with tip 24. Now, this is the final phase of our one thing. One thing that you can embrace on Sunday, that you can implement on Monday. So I want to give you that today. So we're talking about what's that one thing you can do. Let me give you that one thing. And one thing is real simple and it's real easy. And the best way I can illustrate it is this way. I'm going to step off camera real quick because I want you to see this. Now, I got a power cord. This is the female side. This is the male side. Now, this is my little heater I keep at my desk because it gets cold here sometimes. And when I want to plug it in, I take the male side, plug it into the female side that's hooked to the wall that's providing the juice. Plug it in, and I get heat. It's a good heater, but it has no potential to perform unless I give it some juice, unless it is engaged with juice. Did you hear that word? the one thing you can do that will change everything, that will be that little domino that will start momentum for changing performance and behavior in your classroom, is have healthy engagement between the source of power, which is you, and the student here. Healthy engagement. It's the one thing that changes everything. Now, I know you say, oh, come on, really? Yes. You're dealing with human beings. I can give you all kind of research, but let me just give you one quick one. There's a behavioral experiment called the Still Face Experience, STILL. Look it up. It is a famous experience where there's a mother who brings her child in, and she's playing with the child, and then she stops and goes still face. And the baby is looking at her mother like, what's going on? And the baby is going crazy, losing it, can't sit still. It's fidgety and moving around and trying to get the mother's attention, and starts crying and whining. And finally, the mother re-engages. Hey, little baby, how are you doing? Mommy's sorry. Then the baby's fine. But when the mother went still face, when there was zero engagement, the child tripped out. I'll give you another extreme. When we want to punish people, do we allow them to play with other people? Do we allow them to have fun? When we really want to punish people, we put them in solitary confinement. When you want to punish your child at home, do you tell them, hey, go outside and play with your friends? No, get on television and play video games. No, you say, go to your room. Don't play with no toys. Don't turn on that TV. Give me your phone. Because we know that disengaging people from human engagement is a punishment. The flip side works also. Healthy, intentional, targeted engagement is what increases performance, is what creates the groundwork for knocking over that one small domino that knocks over a bigger domino, that knocks over a bigger domino, knocks over a bigger domino. Engagement is that small domino that starts the momentum. See, you can't just jump in a kid's face and want to tell them how to be, how to behave, and tell them what to do and push them and give them hard homework if you haven't built up the engagement with that child or their family. I'll give you another one. Look at the book called Visible Learning by John Hattie. It's a meta-analysis, over 800 meta-analysis of research. Now, nobody has time to do that, but those people who that's what they do. He's done the work for us. It's called Visible Learning. And the reason why he calls it Visible Learning is when learning truly happens, we should be able to see it, that aha moment in a child's mind. You know what I'm talking about if you've been teaching for long. So he calls it the effect size. In his first edition, he gave us 195 effect sizes, strategies that have an effect size. I won't take you all the way through it because this is a short tip, but what we know is that engagement, teacher-student engagement, healthy relationship has it touches every single effect, every single strategy on his 195 strategies. You just can't move student performance and behavior unless you've got a classroom full of intrinsically motivated kids. But if you're teaching in the school districts that I work in, you've got to come with something different. They're not coming to your classroom super motivated to do their best. And if you don't have a classroom like that, then you have got to use engagement as your tool. I'm not just talking about friendly conversation, friendly relationships. I'm talking about healthy engagement that inspires students to learn, not just for you as the classroom coach, but also take ownership of their own learning. I know you want to get right into the books and go into the text, and you want to hit your standards. I know you do. But true learning is not a north-south process. It is a south to north process from the heart to the head. Now, if you have intrinsically motivated kids coming from two-parent homes, supported well, then maybe you can go north to south. Start right out with the learning. Start right out with standards. Start right out with what you need to achieve. But if you've got kids who are coming from one-parent homes, coming from low income, coming from trauma-induced in neighborhoods, come on. It requires a different strategy, a small domino that will knock over larger dominoes later. So the one thing that will change everything, what's the one thing you can do for your students such that by doing so will make everything else easier or unnecessary, is healthy engagement with all kids. Now, stay with me because next week I'm going to talk about 3 barriers to healthy engagement. I'll leave you with this last thing. COVID has thrust us into a lot of different learning environments, one of which is online learning. Online schools are the fastest growing segment in education right now. You've got people homeschooling. You have people, entire districts who are now moving to online schools. You have online learning. You have full online schools propping up. It's the fastest growing segment, and for a lot of different reasons. But what we know from the early research is that kids aren't happy with it and they're not doing well. And one of the reasons, not just technology and lack thereof, it's not just internet access. It's also because it's hard to engage through a screen like we're doing right now. It's hard, particularly for a kid who may not want that class. The human element cannot be replaced if we want kids to learn at high levels, particularly those who I work with and maybe you work with. If you're talking about intrinsically motivated kids coming from two-parent households with super support, super incentives coming from the household to learn, okay, maybe we got an argument. But if your students aren't coming from that kind of household, you need another strategy. And engagement is the strategy. Take this tip on Sunday. Begin to implement engagement on Monday. Healthy engagement on Monday. I'm going to come back with next week, and we're going to talk about the reasons why we don't, the reason why we can't, and I'm going to start moving into 7 power moves that's going to give you 7 power engagement strategies that you can implement on Monday. This is Coach Carlos. See you next week.
Coach Carlos. Coach Carlos.